All right, welcome back to Daybreak. I'm Victoria Rubadiri. Of course, we're about to get into our conversation. Let me quickly introduce the panel that is with me this morning, who, funny enough, have sat, and I was telling them this during the break, in a triangular formation. What does that mean? I'm not sure. So at the top left-hand corner is David Rotich, president of the Moot Court Committee at MKU. Welcome. We also have Ruth Bolo from Young Women Leaders Connect. Very warm welcome to you, Ruth.
Thank you.
Eric Wanyama, a youth officer from Uasin Gishu County. Thank you all for joining me and coming in early. So we should expect a few more to join us as we move along. But let's begin with some of your reactions to the top stories from yesterday into this morning. So both dailies, Daily Nation and The Standard, have covered, of course, Raila Odinga's bid for the AUC chair position. Initial thoughts, because this was a rumor that had been running, and he dispelled it yesterday during his press conference to say, yes, I'm in the running. So, Ruth, I'll start with you.
I think this brings a lot of mixed reactions for me. To start with, I know it is a win-win-win for the government of the day, looking at all the things, or rather just looking at the mere fact that if he does go through, then he will not be as proactive in matters local politics as he, has been before. But on the other hand, now this fuels the succession politics even more, because then the conversations that have been happening in hushed tones of who then takes over next are going to supersede the work that should actually be going on. So I think it's a bittersweet. And looking at when he was in the handshake era with the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, opposition was almost dead. I know the current president, then deputy president, was trying to, play the opposition role. But now I'm looking at a situation where the current prime minister then goes ahead and actually gets this job. Now opposition will actually be completely finished. So it's a bittersweet news for me, though it would be good for Kenya to get it. I'm just hoping that this time round, East Africa will actually have our backs.
Right, because, we've been at this before. Ambassador Amina Mohammed tried her hand at it, of course, was not successful. But, David, what do you make of this? Do you agree with Ruth that this literally kills opposition, in terms of Raila leaving active politics, if he actually makes it through, ahead of 2027?
Absolutely, it does, Amina, because when you, Victoria, because when you look at the current situation, this is more a win for the government more than even for the regular Kenyan person. Of course, it's good having our person in the AU as Kenyans, but when you look at the situation currently and the comments, most of the positive comments come from the government side. The government are even advocating for it more than the legislators and other leaders, the opposition. Yeah. But as she said rightfully, we are very much concerned about the support from fellow East African countries, because now we have been the big brother in the region for quite a good time, but they have not been having our back for long. But also when it comes to the succession politics, as she said, they will be top tier. A lot of races will emerge, because now the big man in the opposition politics seems to be exiting the active Kenyan politics space. So therefore, that means other people will be trying to fill those big shoes. But it is a win for Kenyans, and we advocate for it as Kenyans, and we'll be happy if he takes that position.
Yeah, let me come to you, Wanyama, because people are wondering, is this another handshake? You mentioned that a bit, Ruth. Because, yeah, it's a win-win-win, like you said, for the current government. And, last year, I believe Obasanjo was meeting with the president in Mombasa, and people wondered, what is this meeting all about? We see the announcement yesterday. So what do you make of, at times, these are backroom deals being made that now come out in the open?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Vicky, for having me here. And I want to be very specific. The political paraphernalias are very strange. Today this happens, tomorrow that happens. And for the first time, we are seeing the president so close with the opposition leader. And this has something to do with a handshake. You cannot proceed and become a chair of the same AU if you don't have support from your own country and especially from your own president. And that is to say, in the near future, we see the aspect of a handshake coming through. Number two, we look at the East African region. We are looking at the political icons, the people and the pillars who are in the political sphere. Who is more experienced that can be backed for the same top position? We look at the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. He stands chances because of his immense experience. And so I think this is a very timely period for Kenyans to score as far as the same position is concerned, but only if we are going to be supported by our brothers, the East African community, because the other time it was a sure bet for Amina Mohamed, but it didn't happen. And we had a lot of confidence in her. Can it happen this time round? And I want to believe if Raila will work together closely with His Excellency the President, I believe it's going to be possible, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he got the endorsement from Obasanjo, a respected African statesman, Pan-Africanist as well. But, you know, you're seeing some experts and analysts saying it may not be enough. This is a diplomatic process. And you're right, Eric, because literally the regional backing will be the first test.
Yes.
To see if he can take it now to the rest of the continent. Ruth, let me get your thoughts on this, because the AUC, it's an administrative role. It's a secretariat of the AU. It's not a ceremonial role, so it's very rigorous. And even in terms of the space, it's a very competitive diplomatic space. That if Raila is to take this on, that essentially is what he'll be doing, Africa's CEO, if you will. Is he up to the task?
I think he's definitely up to the task. Remember, we are talking about someone who is also quite well respected, not just across the country, across the continent, but across the globe as well. This is someone who a lot of heads of state, both sitting and former, also look up to and have come to for advice. And it's also not his first interaction really with the AU. So I definitely think he's up to task. But that is not to say that there are countries, for example, that would not want to be proving a point, you know, despite his qualifications. So it might not be enough for him to be qualified. It might not be enough for him to have what it takes. This is where we are really going to see the goodwill tested. And I think I'd also like to just challenge the president a little bit here, because we've seen, and also challenge Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, because he is very good when it comes to, you know, foreign affairs and the diplomacy space. This is his time to actually work with you know, the former prime minister. This is his time to show that goodwill that we've been seeing and that brotherhood that we've been seeing between the two of them over the years, to just show us that it's not during elections only, but it goes beyond that. And for the president, for him also to, you know, watch carefully and see who our friends and allies are, because previously I think we tend to sort of move on quite a bit fast, and we've gotten to a place as a country. Our brothers and sisters from you know, from EAC used to shrink at the thought of attacking Kenya, whether it is on social media, whether it is, you know, through the scuffle that we saw the other day with the airports. They used to shrink at the thought, but right now anyone can sit and, you know, Kenya has almost lost the respect that it had. So I think this is also the time for the president to also just show Kenya as mighty as it used to be. So I don't think this race should be taken very lightly. It should also be used to also just show gain back some respect for the country. So everyone really here needs to be, we need all hands on board for this, yeah.
Let me get Mohamed Abdullahi's take on this law student who's just joined us. You know, from your perspective, Mohamed, because a lot of the thinking around this is Raila has been a presidential candidate, has not won. And so this pivot into continental affairs, you know, is it getting other individuals who have not tasted presidential power in this country to think bigger, if you will?
Probably so, but I think it would have been always better for him, and for his political career had he succeeded in becoming a president. You're very right in saying that the AU chairperson is a very everyday role in everything. But it's not a very political role. It's a very social and economic and just moving around the continent trying to gain goodwill for what the AU's policies are. I think it would have been way better for him politically, and it would have been, I think, a career height had he gotten to the presidency. Does it make other people who have not tasted presidential authority in this country to think bigger, that they could aspire to lead the continent in the future? I very much think so, yes. That it will be an eye-opener that no East African person has ever led the AU as a chairperson. And I think, yes, it might lead a lot of people to think that we are able beyond the country.
No, absolutely. And I think when you're thinking about regional musical chairs, the argument has been, well, the West has had a chance, South has had a chance. It's East Africa's time. Nora Bosibori, policy analyst, is just joining us now. You know, from your perspective, because he would, if taking the role, would essentially drive the implementation agenda for the AU. It's a very policy-heavy role, if you will. So what do you make of this bid that Raila is putting himself in?
Thank you very much. And this is Wanjohi Njoroge. And
oh, I beg your pardon.
No, first and foremost, I think this is a role that Raila would play very, very well. Yeah. We're looking at the implementation of Agenda 2063 at the Africa Union. He's already served as a chair of infrastructure. Yeah. But over and above that, Raila has fought for a lot of things in this country, including the joy, the pride that we enjoy of multi-party democracy. And I think it is time that we see what he can do. He's more, he strikes me as more of a communist, you know, somebody who cares more about people's welfare. So how does that play in bringing Africa together? How do we manage to now renegotiate some of the trade agreements that we have as a continent? As Mohammed rightly said, I think it's time for East Africa to ascend to the chairperson's position. We need to first come together as a country. I think we need to think beyond the politics. Raila has played the role of opposition leader for a very long time. I think it's now time for him to proceed on to something else. We need the likes of Monica Juma, we need the likes of the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, to help us marshal support, not just from East Africa, but from the whole of the continent. And I think it's time for also East Africa to come together and say, you know what, this is our time, and I believe he's going to make Kenya proud. This is also time for us to see him as a leader of, as a president, quote unquote, of Africa. So I'm excited and looking forward to him becoming the chairperson of the Africa Union. I'm very confident, actually. No,
I mean, you've already projected it out there. Yeah, and said it as it is. So anyone else who wants to add to that, yeah, go ahead. David.
Yeah, maybe to maybe add on what she has said. It is very clear. We have three people here that needs to work together to ensure that Raila Amolo wins. We have the former president, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta. We are looking at his regional acceptance during his time as president. He was so much, you know, vibrant, and there was that aspect of togetherness when every time he spoke about East and Central Africa. Now we have our own current president, Ruto, who is very vibrant. We have seen him being accepted internationally because of his oratory skills and his diplomatic approach on matters Pan-Africanism. And also now we have Baba, our all-wise man. Now, if we package all this, we stand a chance. Yeah.
And also, I think it will allow other leaders from the Nyanza region to ascend and be visible. Because I think time has come for us to ask ourselves who is the next, who is going to fill the shoes, and even if not fill the shoes, who is going to design new shoes for the Nyanza region. So I think for me it's a very positive and wonderful thing if he were to ascend to the chairperson, because and then he serves 2 terms hopefully. Then, you know, I think it's going to, 2027 will be a very interesting year altogether if he were to ascend to the AU.
Indeed, I must say it will be very strange to see a political landscape without Raila.
and we need it. We need to see it, actually.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Of course, it's also interesting to note that the Pan-African spirit has been very evident in Kenya of late. of course, taking into consideration the way the president dresses since he has assumed office, and also, of course, from other slogans from people like Ndindi Nyoro, you know, Africa being our business. So I think Kenya is the right country to produce the chair for the AU, and Raila is best suited for the position. So yeah, it's high time, and we welcome, you know, the opportunity with both hands.
All right, so yeah, let's see what that means in terms of politics in this country moving forward. But certainly a space we'll be watching in the next few months as they campaign. But let's get into our topic of the day. When it comes to youth inclusion, it oftentimes sounds like a oxymoron when you hear the term, because you're thinking youth hardly feel included, especially in the matters of politics, even when it comes to economics as well. But, you know, by sheer numbers, let me just give you a few stats here. The youth are a clear majority. We're talking about 75% of Kenya's population are aged 35 and below. I'm assuming we're all in that age bracket,
Yes.
Not including me. Though they are more educated than older generations, they're the most underemployed, underrepresented, and by extension, unheard. So if youth are being touted as Africa's biggest asset, then why is this critical demographic not being engaged more? So let me come to my panel here just to kind of get your thoughts. And I think we can begin with political participation. That oftentimes seems to be a space where youth are easily mobilized around an election cycle. We get them to vote, and sometimes they're weaponized, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But we don't see that translate in terms of actual representation. I remember seeing a stat saying 40% of the 22 million people registered to vote in last election, 2022, were aged between 18 to 35. But we saw such a waning in enthusiasm. Many of them boycotted the election.
Yeah.
You know, one said this is an illusion of choice. Because many of the leaders that we see on the ballot, well, we wonder how did they get there in the first place. But Ruth, let me begin with you in terms of why don't we see that translation of numbers, this critical mass, if you will, in terms of representation in government?
I think I'd like to speak to that in three particular things. The first one being the University Amendment Act 2015, popularly known as the Duale Bill. Previously, we'd have student leaders, and a number of student leaders who participated in student politics before the bill came into play are now in national politics. Look at Honorable Gladys Wanga. We've got the famous Babu, we know. James Orengo was a student leader, Miguna, and so on. And this is because it gave them the proper training, if I may, for them to be able to join and just know what national politics is like. But the way student politics is set up now, you have a handful of people who select now the presidents, if I may call them, of the various universities. So they do not have a touch with the voters. Previously, you'd find that they need to interact with the voters directly, and you find that a single person has been elected by 60,000, 70,000 students. And that is, equal to some of the wards that we have, and even some of the smaller constituencies, actually, that we have. So this would be equated almost to a member of parliament. So when it comes to national politics, they already sort of have some training. But now as it is, we are having a difficulty in seeing a transition between those who have participated in student politics and those who are, and in them joining national politics, because it's a very different landscape than what they're used to. That has also taken away their enthusiasm to participate in, social justice, democracy, and the various governance aspects that are there. Previously, they used to thrive for it. They used to have, this was a platform for them to be able to communicate and to be able to participate and exercise their political rights. And that has been taken away from them. Two, the political parties and party politics, if I may. We've seen a lot, here is where a lot of them either make it then to the national politics or remain, within the party politics. And, you can remain within the party politics confines for 10, 20 years, 3, 4, 5 election cycles. And so if political parties are not intentional in ensuring that the young people within those parties, one, actually get the affirmative action slots that are there, such as the nominated slots, because a lot of what happens in political parties is those nominated slots are left for as reward or tokens of the who's is who's in political parties. So you as as Ruth Bolo, for example, if I've been in a political party, say, for a number of years, and I'm thinking this is now my opportunity to get into national politics and serve as a nominated MCA, then I am number 50 on the list, and probably in whatever county I have been placed at, it's only the top 3 that will get there. So with time, that person is going to be disinterested in politics, and this person who has gotten the opportunity, who is not interested in politics, we are not going to see that number transitioned, because they're only there for a short period of time to take care of themselves, and they leave. We don't even see them active in the county assemblies or in the National Assembly for some of them, because they will be asked, we've never even seen you in politics. Why are you here? They're also still grappling in finding out what that's like. But also thirdly and finally is, as you said, the illusion politics. A lot of young people are saying, this doesn't work for me. A lot of young people are saying, I don't even know my former MP. So why am I going to vote for another person if it's going to be voted for? And this was heavily, heavily fueled in the last election, when we saw leaders actually come out, on the platform and say, we will do what we did last time. We've got the machinery, so we are going to win, whether it is through the ballot, the roof, or the door. So what does that mean? That you're telling a young person who has never voted that whether you vote or not, we know what we did last time. We're going to get it. And, the young person will ask themselves, exactly what did you people do? A lot of young people also, if you just sit with them, and I'm talking about this crop between 18 to 23, 22, 23, some of them are voting for the first time, and they will actually tell you, for me, this bursary thing people even talk about, I don't know it. And we have young people also in different social classes. If you go to the rural area, they will tell you, I don't even have an ID. For me to get an ID, I have to use a motorbike of 300 one way to get to the chief's place. If you go to certain areas or certain slums, in Nairobi, you will get them telling you, but for me, when I was born, I don't know who my mother is, I don't know who my father is, I don't have that documentation. And so when I go to the chief to get, to begin the process of getting my ID, I am frustrated with questions. So I would rather just leave it. And now we are introducing a cost to it. So there's just so many different things that we need to fix, because it's a holistic issue for us to be able to actually get young people to participate. Because a lot of what is happening is young people are used as accessories. So long as they've been mentioned in a document, then that counts as inclusion. So long as there seems to be one or two of them in particular meetings, then the quorum has been met for inclusion. And that perspective needs to change.
We'll definitely unpack that in the next hour. We need to take a quick break here on Daybreak and engage the rest of our panelists on this issue of youth inclusion, going beyond the rhetoric. Stay with us.